The question of whether life exists on other planets, in other galaxies, is hotly discussed by scientists. Some believe it's practically impossible that an occurrence as random as the emergence of life could be repeated, and that therefore our planet must be the only inhabited place in the universe. Others, however, see the presence of carbon, oxygen and hydrogen throughout all the universe as a sign that there must be many inhabited worlds, each very different from the other. But the reality is that today, the only place on which we know for a fact that life has flourished is our planet, the Earth, and it emerged millions of years ago. We also know that forests are the natural terrestrial environments with the greatest richness and diversity of life on the planet, comparable only with the coral reefs of the seas. Until very recently, only a few hundred years ago in fact, woodlands and forests covered more than half of the surface of the planet. But in the last few centuries, more than 60% of this area has been razed to the ground by man, with the decline showing little sign of slowing. The forests and jungles that cover the surface of the Earth are an example of how nature can take advantage of a range of different environments, adapting almost miraculously to soils that may be frozen, hot, desiccated, or salty. Forests and jungles, with their extensive range of trees, plants and animals, were, until not long ago, the perfect place for the development, diversification and flourishing of life. But the fact is that with each day that passes, each hour, each minute, the planet has less and less woodland. It is a profoundly worrying topic whose dire consequences demand deep reflection. After humans, the leafcutter ants of the American forests live in some of the most complex animal societies on planet Earth. Leafcutters are capable of denuding entire trees, transporting the plant matter to their nests. Their relentless, almost obsessive labors deserve comparison to many human actions when exploiting the forests. But ants, wherever they may be on the planet, have no interest in wiping out the forests or jungles. Australian weaver ants, for example, may use forest leaves to build their nests, but they do not put the trees in jeopardy. Rather, on the contrary, they eliminate great quantities of insects that are harmful for the forests. The truth is that little by little, the world is losing its forests. The more developed human societies have evolved with virtually no awareness of the tremendous amount of resources they consume. Trees fell and continue to fall, one after another, to meet society's demands for land, wood and paper to be instantly devoured. It takes only a little imagination to form a general idea of the severity of the problem. Nine and a half million hectares of forest and jungle, that is to say an area the size of Portugal, is destroyed each year. Let us reflect on that for a moment. 9.5 million hectares is a number, a very big one, but just a number. But what, in reality, do we lose with the deforestation of forests and woodlands, distant though they may seem? In the first place, the loss of such biomass is a loss of biodiversity, including many fellow travelers, such as primates. Great apes, monkeys and lemurs live under an unprecedented threat. The destruction of tropical forests has put 30% of all primate species on the road to extinction. The lemurs of Madagascar live only in increasingly small reservations where they are more and more vulnerable to climate change, fire, and disease. The chimpanzees of the tropical lowlands of Africa have been, and continue to be, decimated by hunters and further suffer expulsion from the confines of the forest by loggers and farmers. The total extinction of our closest animal relative is at hand, as is the destabilization and irreparable change of their jungles. With the imminent disappearance of the primates, the ecosystems where they live will change. They are vital to the dispersal of the seeds of hundreds of species of plants and trees on which many other living beings depend absolutely. The changes instigated by humanity reach the jungles and contaminate the most unexpected places. The waste produced by humans reaches the farthest corners of the planet. It is a sobering and depressing thought. The satin bowerbird lives in forests and jungles. It is one of the world's most fascinating and unique birds. The males of the species build complex and attractive constructions in order to impress potential mates. They don't just make beautiful buildings, they also decorate them with exquisite piles of colored objects. Today, in some places, in place of snail shells and flowers, human garbage has been found in their bowers. Plastic caps, cigarette lighters, broken glass. We have no way of knowing whether such objects make the males more successful with their females, but many other animals are in real danger from them, especially the young, who unknowingly ingest them, often leading to a slow and painful death. It is the major consumer societies that pose the greatest threat to forests and jungles across the entire planet. Termites also live in highly organized societies, made up of millions of individuals that need their specific environment to survive. We now know that the massive exploitation of natural resources is one of the major factors responsible for extinguishing the biodiversity of the forests. Distant as they may seem to us, we are all responsible for the destruction of the jungles and great forests. Global trade has had a massive negative impact, with appalling loss of species around the planet as a direct result of what we put in our shopping carts. Experts have identified around 7,000 species under threat from the chain of consumption in the European Union, the USA, China, and Japan. It's not hard to see that the countries that consume the most are the places where most of the natural treasures of the planet end up. Examples abound. Not far from North America, it's possible to go deep into the jungles of Central America. The very path that our morning coffee follows in reverse. When someone in the US drinks a cup of coffee, their actions are directly involved in the deforestation of Central America, which is endangering the most threatened monkey in the world, the spider monkey. For this species to survive, it needs large tracts of forest, since its diet consists of seasonal fruits found scattered over wide areas. The progressive cutting down of their forests is driving them to extinction. Palm oil, employed on a massive scale in the baking and pastry and cosmetics industries, is threatening another great primate that lives in the jungles of Borneo, one of mankind's closest family members, the orangutan. In leveling the forests for palm oil plantations, orangutans are either killed or expelled from their territories. In the last 60 years, their population has decreased by 60%. It is expected that by the year 2025, it will have fallen to less than 20%. As more orangutans are hunted and expelled from their forests, the situation becomes more critical, since, like humans, it has a very low reproduction rate. Female orangutan form very strong emotional bonds with their offspring and will give birth to no more than 3 or 4 babies throughout their lifetime. Yet within the jungles themselves, in this case those of the Amazon, we can find illustrations of how sustainable use of the forest ecosystems can work. Biologists have shown that the southern tamandua, or collared or lesser anteater, knows how to manage the resources of its territory. Despite its fearsome claws, with which it is easily capable of flattening the termite mounds and anthills that sustain it, it is in fact able to suppress its most destructive instincts. Tamandua take a ration of termites or ants from each mound and move on to the next one, visiting all the termite mounds in their territory one at a time, without ever destroying them. Each mound recovers from an attack and continues living. It is a remarkable example of sustainability in the environment. Could humans ever exert such self-control? Will they ever learn to conserve and maintain the richness and diversity of their own planet? In the Australian forest, there is a liana that possesses a remedy for leukemia. From the rhizomes of Dioscorea composita, a kind of yam, come the sex hormones that go into making the contraceptive pill. More than 70% of the species of plants that have cancer-fighting properties come from this environment, and there are still tens of thousands of species to be discovered. Despite the incredible and as yet unknown treasures, it is entirely possible that everything will go up in smoke. Smoke that mercilessly devours the jungles and forests. In 2015, Indonesia was the scene of one of the most catastrophic fires of recent years. More than 2.5 million hectares of forest were incinerated. It was a massacre provoked by palm oil farmers. Millions of animals were burnt alive. It is highly probable that species that we had not even discovered were lost forever as a result. Many of the sun bears that inhabit these forests were killed. Many others lost their territories. This is the only species of bear that lives in this forest, and it is a vital link in the spread of many plants. In recent years, more than 30% of its population has disappeared. And the devastating problem of fire has further, less obvious consequences. In 2015, more than 130,000 forest fires generated 2,000 million tons of greenhouse gases, more than countries like Germany or Japan produce in a year. The forests and jungles of the planet are both at the start and the end of the most pressing environmental problems humanity is facing, from global warming to the loss of biodiversity. Everything is connected. The future is ours. For the first time in the history of mankind, we have the ability to completely transform our planet, its ecosystems, its jungles and forests. Yet we give very little thought to the consequences of our actions, even though the losses are clear to see. It is time to reflect profoundly and effectively on these tragedies. Simple personal actions can directly help preserve the jungles and forests of the planet. Responsible production and consumption, the recycling of paper and wood, the use of new and renewable energies, and the protection of territory are obligations to which we must not wait any longer to commit. It is the time for action.